everybody, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Hooked on Hitchcock. I'm your host, Jonathan Moody. I'm here with my co-host.
Gee, Larry Butler. Gee, it's great
Yes.
to be here.
We every single time right before we do it, there's a lot of like technical issues with both of us. So but we're here. That's all that matters.
Yeah, we're
Butler, we're
flying by
here.
this. We're flying by the seat of our pants.
Butler, we're here. So now we're gonna be talking about the I want to say 19 was it 30s or is it 1940?
No, the 40s. It's during the war with Germany,
Ah, yes,
World War II.
1942. Yes,
Yeah, they keep referencing that.
this is basically a propaganda film, but
I would say so. Yeah,
it was the movie Saboteur, not to be confused with Hitchcock's other movie Sabotage, which was I think we
yeah.
already covered that one. But this is Saboteur, which I actually really enjoyed this movie. Um,
As did I.
it really reminded me of movies like The 39 Steps and
Yes, and North by
North
Northwest.
by
A
Northwest.
lot of parallels there.
Yeah, and I really had a blast watching it. It I think I've seen it before, but I couldn't tell if I'd seen it before or I'd seen things like this, because like there was actually probably I didn't because the beginning of the movie with the fire coming, I never remembered that. Like there was
Yeah,
no there, and that is something that's definitely very memorable about the movie. So I don't
right,
think
right.
I've seen it before, which is great because I now own it on 4K. I've got the where is it? It's right here, the 4K of it.
Uh-huh.
Larry's not looking, but the 4K, that's what the 4K looks like there. And it's actually got some really great extras. One is Saboteur A Closer Look, which was like 30 minutes long. It was a featurette made with a lot of the people. It had Norman Lloyd as one of the people talking. It had the art director. It had Pat Hitchcock, Hitchcock's daughter, talking about the making of that movie. So,
Oh,
cool.
really?
Yeah,
Because Norman Lloyd played the spy, the German spy named
yeah,
Fry,
and it was
and
cool
he
because
and I noticed a lot of nepotism in this movie. Have you noticed who produced it?
who
Uh, a guy named Frank Lloyd,
I don't know
and
if they're related.
I don't know, but it's odd because the two of the actors are both named Kruger. The guy that
Hmm,
played Tobin was Otto Kruger, and the rich Mrs. Sutton was Alma Kruger.
not
Wasn't that
related. Not related at all. I
not
looked
at
that up.
all?
I had to look that up because I was curious like you, and
Oh,
I looked it up. They were not related at all.
okay,
But yes, there's no
very. It was
names.
kind of an odd coincidence.
Well, yeah, there was like you said, there's two Lloyds. I don't think they're related.
And have you
Um,
noticed who the cameraman was? Tony Randall, and it has a picture of him. And I
okay.
thought before he made it big, he was a cameraman.
So what was he
So
big
isn't that
in?
weird? I don't know. I don't think he was playing one because there were no camera crew in the movie, was there?
No, but was he an actor?
I don't know. That's a very strange thing. And it shows a picture of Tony Randall as a cameraman. He must have been very young.
Let me see. Let me look him up on IMDb because I don't know. So, okay, okay, so you're saying as a cameraman on it. He wasn't the cinematographer though, because the
No, no.
cinematographer was Joseph A. Valentine, but
I was just wondering if there was a cameraman in the movie. Did they
oh,
show a cameraman in the movie?
oh, so an actor, Tony Randall, was
Is
playing.
playing a cameraman.
Hmm,
I don't know, but
I don't know. I
very
don't.
strange. But
Yeah.
anyway, it's neither here nor there. It's because We got a lot of stuff to discuss.
There is a
Um,
lot to discuss in this
there's a
movie.
lot. I made 7 pages of
Oh,
notes, seven
Jesus.
and a half. So I've got a million things to talk about, but
Well, first of all,
probably not going to be
did
able.
you see where Hitchcock was?
No, I did not. It gave me the wrong information. It said there in 1 minute he was in front of a drugstore. There was
No, it
no
wasn't
drugstore.
not 1 minute. It was when they were what's his name? The main guy, Robert Cummings' character. Um got was it Barry
Barry
Kane?
Kane.
Barry Kane when Barry Kane was uh driving in his car, um or where not was in the car with the bad guy, and they were waiting, they were talking for a little bit, and then he was like, "Oh, we're on our way now. Looks like we're on our way now," or whatever. Right before then, when they get in the car, you see Hitchcock for like 2 seconds. He's outside
I
the
did
drugstore.
not miss. I missed that one
Yeah.
completely because I
Uh,
had wrong information. It had two kinds of sources of information. Both of them were wrong.
hmm
I couldn't find them no matter what. So I gave up.
That's
And
okay.
first time,
But he was in this movie, briefly. I didn't really see him until it got pointed out to me where he was, or whatever in that
oh,
documentary thing.
well, I watched it twice like I normally do, and I caught so much stuff the second time you wouldn't believe it. I made another page and a half of notes that I missed the first time. It was very fast paced,
hmm
and it was just hard to read it because I didn't understand. I couldn't hear well,
hmm
and some of the accents, and so it was the second time I caught most of it. There's a lot of humor, a lot of hidden humor,
Well, you know
and
why that is, right?
a lot of sarcasm.
You know who
And
put that in there, right?
Hitchcock,
Not just Hitchcock, but Dorothy Parker also wrote this movie.
was that his daughter?
Dorothy Parker? You don't know who Dorothy Parker is? The famous
No.
writer, and she is a there's a great movie called Dorothy Parker and the Vicious Circle or something like
Oh,
that. Dorothy and
okay.
the Vicious Circle, and it's about Dorothy. So Dorothy Parker was part of a group. What is it? I forgot. Hold on, let me look what they were called. Um,
Was she was the screenwriter or just?
yeah, she was a writer originally, and she was so it's called Mrs. Parker in the Vicious
Oh,
Circle,
wow.
and she and she Dorothy Parker was a part of the Algonquin Round Table, a circle of friends whose barbed wit, like hers, was fueled by alcohol and flirted with despair. you know. So
Wow.
the idea is like there was this group of people, group of rich writers who would get together and just, jab at one another and use
Drink and
their wit.
jab.
Yeah,
Yeah.
drink, yeah. And she was very known for her jabby writing. And so
Wow.
the scene with the blind man specifically, I was thinking that's got to be a Dorothy Parker scene.
Yeah, he was criticized for that. Some of the reviews, they said,
Mhm.
he went on and on and on philosophically, and they made fun of him. And but I thought it was kind of cool what he said, though. I really enjoyed it.
I loved everything he said. We'll get to that when
Yeah.
we get to that part. So I
Yeah.
guess let's get to the beginning. So in
Okay.
the beginning of the movie, there's these I don't know what it's called, what the place is called. You start describing. We'll start talking from there.
Yeah. Well, I took notes, so I can probably read you some of the parts. It was called the National Defense Airplane Manufacturing Plant,
hmm
and it was in Glendale, California. And
I've been around Glendale. I don't think I've ever been in Glendale.
yeah, well, it's near Pasadena, but it's got a lot of big buildings like that.
That's where I lived. Remember, you've been to my house out when I was out in
Yeah,
San Gabriel.
that's right.
That's
Yeah,
where we filmed the first Hooked on Hitchcock. We recorded it at my house in San Gabriel. So
that's right.
came out to
The
do that.
good old days.
Good old days
Yeah.
when we were all, you know. And then we decided to do Zoom, and I don't know why. easier
Well,
to
it's
get
kind of
together.
hard to meet in the middle, because
Yeah.
we're 3,000 miles apart.
Yep. But anyway,
So yeah.
but
So anyway, do you want to talk about the plot or
yeah,
just
that's what I think.
get right
We'll
into it?
go right into the plot and stuff, the story.
Okay. So you want me to read it or?
Actually, you know what? I bet Wikipedia has a good, like, actual,
uh,
thing for it. And then if you have certain notes on certain things there, we can hit those up, But
Okay.
I think they usually do the plot lines pretty well, you
Yeah.
know. Sometimes,
Okay.
sometimes this one doesn't look that
Okay. I'll be the color commentator.
okay. Aircraft
You'll be the
factory
straight man.
Aircraft factory worker, Barry Kane wrongly falls under suspicion of setting fire to his Glendale, California manufacturing plant during World War II in an act of domestic sabotage. Kane believes the actual culprit to be an apparent employee, Fry, from whom he encountered earlier. And we see it because he only knows Fry's name because he dropped his like letters and stuff, which he knew some of that, his name and some of the other information from him. Um, when no one by that name is found to have worked there, Kane becomes the target of a manhunt. He remembers an address from an envelope carried. Oh my God, this is really, yeah, this is going way too fast into it. There's like a lot of different things. Like he went to the house of the man who was
Oh yeah. Well,
murdered.
let's just summarize. Let's summarize the movie. It's about an aircraft worker who's accused of sabotage, and then he flees to prove his innocence. It's kind of the running man syndrome, like Hitchcock does a lot of that.
The wrong man. Yeah.
The wrong man, the running man, he runs to escape because it would be too hard to convince the authorities that he's innocent. So he runs, and he travels from California to New York, meets a young woman who helps him begrudgingly because she thinks he's a criminal till the last part of the movie. And then it's kind of called the Man on the Run theme, similar to North by Northwest and 39 Steps. So that's
Yep.
basically how they summarize it.
Yep.
So the story would be different. We could go into every little part of the story now. But
Yeah.
that's basically it. The tagline is like two sentences long,
Mm,
just enough to sell the movie, but to pitch it.
yeah. Well,
But I thought it was interesting when there's three guys walking together, or two guys, and they trip a guy accidentally, and he falls down, and they pick him up, and he's really pissed off, and he doesn't even want to talk to him. He's not pleasant at all. They apologize. And then they found $100 bill, and they track him down, and in the cafeteria, and they give it back to him, and he doesn't say a damn thing.
oh,
It's
he's
like
upset.
somebody gave
He's
me a
like,
hundred. Back then it was worth over $1,000, $100 bill, back in the 40s.
I think he was too like busy thinking about the sabotage that
Yeah,
he wasn't
right.
even thinking like he didn't care about those guys, but those guys
Well,
didn't know,
I don't think he cared about anybody. I think he was very dispassionate, very callous towards people. At the very end of the movie, where the girl is saying, "Oh, this is so sad about bring me your poor, your huddled masses." And isn't that sad? And he says, "Yeah, very sad." And he's very sarcastic. So he doesn't care
Yeah.
about people at all.
No,
He's just
well, of course not.
collateral
I mean, he
damage.
murders a lot of people.
Yeah, well,
Like he
they're
just,
collateral damage. It's tough shit,
yeah,
so they're just in a way how to kill them all. So he's kind of a sociopath, as is Tobin. Later on we'll find out about him, but he's really one of my favorite characters
Tobin.
because he's so malignant with a smile on his face. You notice all the horrible things he said, he had a smile,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just
We'll get to
very.
that.
But his eyes were cruel and menacing. So anyway, um, then the fire breaks out, right?
Mm-hmm.
You see all this black smoke, and
That
then
was the greatest, like that shot of the black smoke coming, and
Hmm.
Traveling was just probably one of the most epic shots I've ever seen Hitchcock do. And I forgot they said there was a trick to it. They had to do it
Uh-huh.
specifically to make it happen. But like one of the art director explained this in the I watched this amazing documentary about it, but uh the art director said it was the first time he had ever had a director actually do storyboards, for him,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
So like, so he knew exactly what he wanted, so he said, this is what I want. And the
Right.
art director's like, oh, well, that makes it a lot easier for me to make happen, and stuff. It was kind of a neat little thing for him to work on Hitchcock, because Hitchcock was very meticulous about what he wanted. He knew in his head what he wanted and everything, and he knew how to
Hmm.
he knew that he knew other people knew how to get that if he actually explained it well. So I really liked the smoke. I thought the smoke was awesome.
Hmm. And
Um,
then you might have had a different version than me. It was kind of truncated. It was just like a couple of seconds of black smoke,
I
and
liked
then
it.
it
I
went
thought it was
on.
cool. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Some people might not like it. Some people might think it's awesome, but it was just
He
black
he
smoke.
does
Yeah.
a lot of he does a lot of black smoke with trains and stuff. Have you noticed?
Hmm.
There's a lot of black smoke in all of his movies that, especially with the train ones.
I
I don't.
wonder if
I
it's
some
something specific for him.
It's symbolic. Somebody explained that once why he does that, but I forgot what it was. There's something about creating a mystery or muddy the waters. So anyway, so these guys, uh, they 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 picked up his mail. When he tripped, mail all over the place. So later on, Barry remembers that was the name, like Frank Fry, and it was Deepwater Springs. That's where he was coming from.
Hmm.
Um, and then they gave him the money to do the job. And
Yep.
so anyway, but what happened was his friend Ken Mason, Barry gave him the fire extinguisher. But unbeknownst to him, it was filled with gasoline. So it poured fuel on the fire, literally.
Hmm.
And so it incinerated his friend. And Fry actually was the one that gave it to him, and then he passed it. Oh, because Ken Mason said, "Are you going to have all the fun? Can I play too?" So
Hmm.
then Barry just gave it to him. Said, "Okay, have
Yeah,
fun."
Barry would have been the one who died. Had
Yes, exactly. He would
no,
have been the one. So
he
so
would have been the
anyway,
one who died, but Ken wanted the extinguisher, and then it set them all on fire, so he was dead in the fire. And that was actually pretty cool if you think about it, because back then,
yeah.
at that time period, there was no CGI fire. That was a real fire,
Um,
and that dude was in the middle of real fire, you
how
know.
could he have survived though?
Well, I don't
I,
know. There's got to be something like blocking so he can get out in real life, but we didn't
because
see
it
that.
consumed him. That fire kind of enveloped him,
I don't
and
know
I
how
thought,
they did that.
boy, and I don't know how he did it because if there's no CGI, they did some trick
They did
because
some trick.
he
That's got to
didn't have
be.
any padding unless he had some kind of lubricant, not lubricant, but some kind
But
of
even
oil.
that would not happen with his face. He didn't have anything covering his face. So I don't know how that
I don't
happened. But that
know.
was so cool
That
because
was impressed by that. That really got me how they
because
did
like
that.
yeah, and especially if you think about people that are watching this in 1942, and watch a scene like that, they're like, like how
Oh
is
yeah,
this possible?
sure,
Right? Movie magic. I don't
that's
know.
true.
I don't know how, but there's movie
Well,
magic,
they
obviously.
they had some kind of trick, but it wasn't a phony background or anything. I
Mm.
mean, it was actually something alive. I don't know, but the sirens went off. All the people panicked, ran all over the place screaming. And then Barry goes to Ken's mom's house later, try to console her.
Mm.
And she, now I don't know if she tells him he's a suspect in a murder investigation when he first gets there or
No, no,
not.
it
I
was
don't think so.
after. It was after.
Okay, the guys come because I get that mixed up, but he goes and gets her some brandy because he wants to make her feel good. But she was inconsolable, like I really don't want to talk right now. And of course, she's in shock. And so he runs and gets some brandy. And then while he's gone, the two detectives come in.
Well, he runs
They
next
knock.
door because he doesn't have Brandy at the house, so he runs next
Right.
door to ask if she could
Exactly.
borrow hers.
Well, yeah. The
So,
neighbor comes. He meets her in the kitchen. He's looking for brandy. And the neighbor comes in and says, well, I've got some in my house, and then come on over and I'll give you some. So he's coming back with it. And that's when she finds out that he's chief murder suspect. So she tells him, you better leave right now. She doesn't want him in her house.
well,
And
I
then,
mean, I don't like, and I totally understand that because, like, even if she doesn't think he probably did it, there's still that suspicion that maybe he did do it, or whatever,
well, yes, she can't be certain
You
at
can't be
that point.
sure.
I mean, she's so overwhelmed and confused anyway, so she just doesn't want to be bothered with him at the moment.
Hmm.
And but anyway, she did like him enough as his son's best friend that she lets him go out the back because the guys come back. Somebody's at the front door and they knock again. He says, "You better leave right now." So he goes out the back. So yeah, she told the detectives, well, I don't know where he is. He was here, but not now. And so then he goes and hitchhikes. Right, that's
Right.
the next
That's
scene.
actually one of my favorite scenes too, because that truck driver was funny.
That one of my favorites. Yeah, but the character
He was
himself.
a character, yeah. He was a funny
Yeah,
character.
I don't know if that was all improv or what, but my
I
God,
think that was a lot of was once again, I think a lot of it was Dorothy Parker. I think
really
a lot of it she
good.
has a lot of wit, and she worked really
Yeah.
well with his sort of stuff. But my favorite line, and actually, so one of my friends is an actual truck driver. He's a night truck
Uh,
and I was telling him about this movie the other day, and I told him that there was that great line in the movie where he says do you like being a truck driver or something, and the guy's like, oh, you know I would have retired, but my wife likes to eat 3 meals a day. Kind of thing. Like that line about 3 meals a day and my all that stuff. And I thought that was really funny. Um, I think
he
that
said a lot. Yeah, he he was talking so fast. I think I missed that line, but I caught a couple other ones. But he was a good guy. And then they were driving along, and suddenly this fire extinguisher right by Ben's head, or Ben, what's his name, Barry. Barry's
Barry,
head starts clanging against the wall, and the truck driver goes, "You want me to pad that for you?" And I give him a newspaper, and he says, those things are so important. They save a lot of lives."
yeah,
And I was like, "Oh my God, that's somebody's wit. Maybe that Dorothy Parker's wit. You know,
yeah,
it's bragging about how good they are, and one of them killed his friend.
right.
So it's just
And on top
kind of
of, I
dark,
mean, you know, uh,
dark, dark humor.
yeah, I mean, there's also a really great line where he says, I didn't see it happen, never see anything happen. I don't even hear about anything except when my wife tells me what she sees in the movie pictures.
Oh
That's the
yeah,
way she spends
right,
the
right.
money. Movie pictures and new hats. Buys a hat so she can
Yeah,
put it on and go to the picture show so she could take it off.
I that was funny. I
Okay.
think some of that was improv because it's just it flowed so well. I don't know if it was all scripted, but it could have been.
Yeah.
So anyway, they're driving along, and suddenly, motorcycle cop, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, get out of the car. I want to talk to you. And he just takes the driver out, right? So the guy freaks out, Barry, and he jumps out the other side, thinking, "Oh God, he's going to try to arrest me." And so he almost leaves, and suddenly the driver gets back in the truck, and yeah, it's okay. I just had a tail light out, and then says, "Oh." And they drive off, and then the motorcycle cop gets a call from dispatch saying, attention all motorcycle police. They gave a description of Barry and, apprehend him immediately. He's very dangerous. And the cop looks back, and then he decides to go the other way. So that's two bits of suspense from Hitchcock,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I thought one after the other, like he loves suspense, keeping us in suspense. So
Mm-hmm.
I thought, oh, that was a good one, back to back suspense. So anyway, so they keep driving, and then was it what happened next? He has
Okay, so well, no, because he asked him if he could drive him to this. He wants to go to this place, the springs, because he's
the
asking him,
Deep
yeah,
Springs Ranch,
does he say, where are you going? Over because he wants to go to Soda City, right, or something.
right?
No, wait, no, he doesn't want to go to Soda City because he finds out about Soda City. He wants to go to the ranch, so he remembers the ranch on the thing. So he says, "Yeah, let me go there." So he drops him off at that ranch, and that's the ranch, Tobin's
Right.
ranch, basically.
What was funny about what he said about the town, it's just a one horse town. It's just one block long. You blink twice, you missed it, or something like that. And then but he says, I'll take you to the ranch. I mean, you don't want the town. There is no town. So then he takes him to Deep Spring because Barry remembers what was on the letter.
Mm-hmm.
And so then he walks in and talks to the housekeeper. And she said, I don't know any Fry. And he said, oh, well, who's the owner of the house? Oh, Tobin. Well, can I talk to Mr. Tobin? So he goes out, and Tobin's playing with his baby baby daughter. And I think it's his daughter, right?
Could be
And
either
at the
daughter or
pool.
granddaughter, but I think it was
Yeah,
daughter.
I think he's old enough to have a granddaughter, but I think he's married to a young woman. And so they have this young baby. She's about one or two. And so they talk. And immediately, there's no pleasantries. He just said, a guy named Fry? And the guy lies, of course. And he says, no, I never heard of him.
But he was like, "But I may be the person downtown."
I may have, yeah. So he presses him, and they say, "Well, one of my neighbors may have had the guy working for him." He total liar. But so then he says, "Excuse me for a moment. Could you watch my baby Susie while I'm in the house?" And he goes to call the police, but Barry doesn't know that, of course. So he's playing ball with a kid, and she goes in the pocket and pulls out all these old letters and throws them on the floor. And he picks them up, and he sees Frank Fry on the letters. Like, what? This is the guy he just lied about.
And he
And
said
and then
that he was going to Soda City. That was what the
yeah,
telegram
and so
said or whatever.
and so it was overheard by Mr. Tobin, who was watching this whole thing. And he says, "Oh, uh, you're pretty clever," or something. I forget what he said, but is it so? Um, After that, they started arguing about, well, why are you being like this? And he says, I don't know what his response was, but he just kept denying that he knew him, but he got this
Oh no, but
letter, so he's
yeah, when he got the letter, got caught with the letter, he's like, "You know where, this guy is, but we're not going to let you go because I just called the police on you and they're on their
right,
way or
right.
whatever." So how does he
Yeah.
escape? How does Barry Kane escape?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what they said. There's some very clever dialogue. And he kept saying, "Well, you're in trouble." And then Tobin turns it around. He said, "No, you're in trouble. You're the fugitive. I'm a self-respecting citizen." And Barry says, "I mean, how can you do this? You live in this great country, and how can you be like this?" And then he had some interesting comments. I didn't write them down, but it was like it's like caught red-handed, and it's obviously he doesn't like the country, but he just says, "Well, I'm the one that's going to jail, not you." So
Hmm.
then Barry
Yeah, this is
grabs
this
the
is the line. This is the line. I'll get this to you. He says, "You can't get away with this, Tobin. Even if I don't stop you, there'll be others that will. A man like you can't last in a country like this." It's like very pretty speech, youthful, passionate, idealistic. You see, I've already sent for the police. It's like, you can't bluff me. You're hooked and you know it. It's like, must I remind you that you are the fugitive from justice and not I? I'm a prominent citizen, widely respected. you're an obscure young workman wanted for committing of extremely unpopular crime. Now, which of us do you think the police will believe?" That
Yes,
was what he
very
said to
good.
him. And I
How
thought,
did you
wow,
find it?
it's on
Did you?
IMDb quotes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, very like you said, this Dorothy Parker, very very great
I think some
writer.
of that stuff is her, some of it might not be. There's a couple other
Uh,
writers, but
it's very witty.
hmm
Um, and I thought, and I'm going to use that the next time I'm caught red-handed doing something. Uh, no, I'm just joking. But um, so anyway, then Barry grabs the kid and runs off with her. So they don't. Oh no, he tries to leave, and the housekeeper in slow mo. I thought, if this was real life, he could have grabbed her arm, but she pulls a gun out of her purse, but very slowly, and he's just sitting there watching her do it. And he says, "What is that gun do? Shoot water?" Remember that was so
Yeah,
funny because it's so tiny.
it's so
It's like, what
tiny
is a
gun.
pellet
She
gun?
said it was bullets,
So
so
anyway, so then somehow he gets control of the kid. I don't know. The kid runs
no,
to
no,
him.
no. He asked her to come to him, and he's like,
Yeah.
"Don't go, Susie, don't go." And he grabs Susie and
Well,
uses her
Tobin
as
is saying don't go, but he's
yeah.
saying, come here, Susie. And she really likes him, so she does. And he scoops her up. But I don't know why they couldn't have shot him in the back. Uh, it didn't really, they could have shot him in the butt or the legs. Nobody thinks
I
about
think
that.
they were
So,
afraid to shoot that is
yeah,
somehow
I
it would
know.
shoot the
I
little
know.
girl.
I know. But I mean, if in real life they could have named a little lower. But see, anyway, he gets around the corner and then lets Susie go. He jumps on a horse. It was such a fast getaway, and then even a faster pursuit by the posse. I'm thinking, damn, were they already ready on their horses? I mean, it was
Yeah,
such a jump
that's
cut.
sort of a movie thing.
Yeah, it had to be because you know,
Yeah,
they were all ready to go. Jeez.
and and I mean, who is this posse? Who's this gang of people? I don't know. But anyway, they start running after him and they catch up to him pretty freaking quickly. And they lasso him. It was like a Western, man. They
Yeah,
lasso the dude and pull him down off the horse. And I'm
yeah. Well, they're cowboys, so
I know, but I was like,
they
I
know how
did
to
not
do
expect to
stuff.
see that, you know.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
modern Western. Yeah.
you know,
So, let's see. Uh, okay, the cops catch him and take him away in a squad car after Barry pleads with them to investigate Tobin. So, trucker. Okay, anyway, so they agree with Tobin that he's a prominent citizen, and how dare you accuse him of anything? So anyway, they take him off, and then they're going down the road, and they see that the truck in front of them, driven by our old friend, the trucker, has a flat tire and it blocks the road. And so Barry asks for a cigarette and then jams his elbow in the cop's face and jumps out the door. I don't know how he does it with his legs. He doesn't touch it with his hands because they're handcuffed, but he kicks the door open. I'm thinking, how do you do that? But anyway, he did it. And he jumps out the car and then jumps off the bridge. And I thought, my God, what a stunt. That's a
hmm
very high bridge. That
Yep.
must have been like over 50 feet in the air, but
hmm
it was a hell of a jump, and the guy did it perfectly straight. And because I've done a lot of high jumps from cliffs and stuff, and I know that's a tricky thing to do.
Especially
But
going into water, like you don't know if you're gonna
that's
hit
right.
like
You don't know
rocks
what's
or
down there.
something.
Well,
Yeah.
well, in the movie he didn't know, but in real life, the stuntmen probably,
Yeah, they
through
probably
the
take a
search,
look at and make sure
they
that the
they
area
had to
that they're
check it out. There might have been a rock in there or something. Um, So anyway, so he's swimming away, and then one of the cops chases him, right? And
hmm
then he goes around the other side, and Barry hides behind a rock, and then he grabs the cop from the back and forces him into the water. He grabs his ankles,
Would you
and
say that
then
Barry, hey, would you say that Barry was in a rock between a rock and a hard place?
I would say that, and that's very astute of you. So I know it's been a rocky life for you, but you're on the other side, right? Okay. And so the trucker defends him, and
Hmm.
the way he does it, the cop is in the water, right, and he's
Hmm.
swimming away, and the trucker goes, "There he is! He's getting away!" So all the cops chase the other cop, and then
Right.
Barry climbs out the other
And
side.
then
That
he
was
gives
very
like a
good.
thumbs up basically
Yeah,
to Barry to let him know you're safe to
right. He
go.
gives it the okay. It used to be an okay symbol
Wait,
instead of the thumb up.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, okay, of course, he knows it's Barry, but like he doesn't know if Barry's a good guy or not, you know? Like for real. Like even if he took Barry when they were in the truck, he doesn't Barry could still be a criminal, like a bad guy doing
Right,
bad
but he
things.
likes him. He has a good personality. So sometimes people just take a chance, and
Well, see,
I don't know, people are more suspicious.
that's what this movie is about. This movie is about good, kind people in America at that time doing good,
Yeah,
kind things for other people. Like
right.
he has a line later on in the movie that we'll probably get into, but there's a line where he's telling Tobin later that, you know what, you think like all Americans, are bad people, but I've been on this journey going through all this stuff and I found out there are actual good people out there right now that actually care about other Americans, right? And I thought, okay, that's the theme of the movie, right? Like, because we see people,
Right.
we see that guy, and then we see the guy who's next, you know, and all these other people that are just trying to help him out, you know? I mean,
Mhm.
that's just, oh, and yeah, there's a bunch of people, we'll get to them, but a bunch of people that are trying to help him out and are really good Americans
Right,
who care about each other
right,
and they're aren't stupid morons like this guy thinks every American is.
right.
So, there you go.
Well, we're part of the moronic millions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, well, that reminds me of somebody. I won't mention their name, but uh, in the present situation, uh, but we all know who that is. Um, okay. So anyway, he climbs up the bank and runs into the woods and finds a cabin in the woods in the rain. And he starts to go in. Dog starts barking. This old man, an older man, comes to the door, and he he says, "Oh, can I help you?" And it's kind of wet out there, and so Barry he says, "Come on in and get out of the rain." And Barry does, and then Barry starts talking to him, and the man, you could tell there's something a little off about him, but he didn't know exactly that he was blind. And so, as you find out later, because
And
when Barry he's trying to dry off, and the man tries to give him his clothes. He says, "No, I'm fine here," trying to dry off, and he gets a log from the fire and he drops it, and he reveals that he has handcuffs. The
mm,
man doesn't even say a word. He doesn't even really look at him because
mm,
he can't see. And so then we realize, and then Barry notices that too, and he waves his arm in front of his face, and he notices that he's blind. And then the guy asks him his name, and Barry kind of stutters. He gives his first name, but then he gives almost the last name, and then he starts. The K came out of Kane, but he didn't say it. Then he said Mason, his friend's name, and then well, that's pretty obvious because the guy by then knew, and he tells him later, I can hear things, the nuances that normal people can't hear.
well,
Uh,
did you
right?
also notice like Barry Mason sounds a little bit like Harry Mason? And I was wondering if that was a like I was like, wait, Perry Mason didn't come out till after the TV show didn't come after. Coming to find out that the
Oh,
pulp magazines for Perry Mason back
yeah.
before Perry Mason TV show existed, and there were
Oh,
books and other things. So
right. Well,
Dorothy Parker could have done that as a sort of
maybe
jab to Perry Mason and called him Barry Mason.
could have been, but
Um,
it was in the '40s, so it wasn't TV yet. It was
no, but I'm
radio.
saying like, but yeah, it was actual books and stuff, novels.
Oh, I see.
There,
Yeah.
so there were Perry Mason existed.
Okay.
They just weren't. They weren't the TV show Perry Mason that with Raymond
Huh.
Burr. Didn't exist.
Yeah.
Did you know they
Good old
remade
Perry
Perry?
Mason.
Did you know they remade Perry Mason?
I've been in both. I did one 30 years ago with the real Perry Mason, Raymond Burr, and then I did another one that just revitalized it.
Did
It
you?
was
Were you
kind
were
of,
in both of them?
I was in both. So
Nice.
they kind of like that. So they put me in a scene with a head actor because of that. I told them, oh, I did it with Raymond Burr. I did several movies with him, actually.
Nice.
Some as an extra, and then some as actually a principal actor.
So
Just
this
had a couple lines.
could have been a reference to Perry Mason. Could been just a coincidence that the names sound
Yeah, it could
very
be.
similar. Who
I
knows?
hadn't thought of that. That was
But I
pretty
thought of
smart.
that when I listened to it because that's the first thing I thought
But
of. Is like Perry Mason or Barry
yeah,
Mason sounds like Perry.
right. But
Okay.
okay, so the guy goes. I was aware both times that you had handcuffs. I could hear them, and also that you stumbled on your name.
Well, that was
So that was a
before.
giveaway.
Well, we forgot to skip the part where, yeah, the woman, his
No, 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 no. That was before the woman
No,
came
that
in.
was not. That was not. I will fight you on this. The
Oh,
woman
okay.
came in, and then that's when he's like trying to like hide his handcuffs from the woman because he knows she can see and everything. And then she kind of sees it, and the uncle says, "Oh, you didn't hear his handcuffs that he had? Oh, I knew
Okay,
he had
good. All
handcuffs the
right.
whole time,
Yeah.
and everything." So he
Okay.
says it to the
Okay. Duly
thief.
noted. Yeah.
Yep.
Um. But anyway, so that's how that went down, and then, well, actually, we skipped the part before that even started, um, because she passed him a plate of food,
Mm-hmm.
remember, and then he dropped a knife, and
Mm-hmm.
then he revealed his handcuffs, and she went,
Yep.
oh, we got to turn him in right now. It's
Yep.
just
And
so she,
And then he
that's when the
says, yeah, that's when the uncle says the line about you didn't I knew about the handcuffs and stuff. And she said, well, let's turn him in, and he said, oh, what does he say? Do you have the line?
oh shoot, my computer screen just went off. He says something about well, why are you so cruel? I mean, why what are you afraid of? I could tell that he's an innocent man just by talking to him. And oh shoot, my fucking computer went down. Um, God damn it. Anyway, uh, so they have kind of an argument, and she's not happy at all. She wants to turn him in. He doesn't. He does a lot of philosophical ruminations, and it kind of, some people didn't like that, and they in the reviews they thought, that shouldn't have belonged, but I think it did.
Well,
It
the
was
line is, I'm not convinced at all he's guilty. And she says, Uncle Philip, it's your duty as an American citizen. He goes, it is my duty as an American citizen to believe a man innocent until he's proven guilty. Pat, don't tell me about my duty. It makes you sound so stuffy. Besides, I have my own ideas about my duties as a citizen. They sometimes involve disregarding the law. And
Mhm.
I sent you a photo of
Yeah, no,
that
I got
line.
that.
And
I
I
got that.
think I love that line because I almost feel like we should be listening to that now nowadays. You know,
Well, some of us are, and
yeah, hopefully
some people are taking action, but
good.
I don't know how good it's going to do. But
Well, they're trying.
anyways, yeah, we'll see. That'll be our revolution one of these days. Um, but for now, we probably shouldn't talk too much about that.
Yeah.
Uh, so she wants him to call the cops. When he's not convinced he's dangerous or guilty, and he's a very kind man. And then he sends Barry with his niece to a blacksmith friend to remove the cuffs. And so the niece tricks Barry, drives past the blacksmith, hooks his cuff over the steering wheel, and taking him to the police. She kind of seduces him to come. Can you come over a little bit? I want to see those. And
Mm.
then she loops him over the steering wheel,
Hmm.
and then he kind of muscles the car away from her and starts driving it himself. even, haphazardly because he's got his arms over the steering wheel. And he says, I really hate driving like this because it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
And they, so then they get to a place where he decides, or does she decide or she decides, I want to get out. And he says, okay, fine. I'll just take the car. You go. And she walks 100, 200 blocks down the street, 200 yards away, planning to flag down the first car that she sees. So one passes. It's kind of like, good, good on you. You didn't get your wish, did you? Because she's such a little bitch.
Mm-hmm.
And so it passes her.
That was
And she's like,
Priscilla
what?
Lane. You know, that's
And then the
Priscilla Lane.
second one comes the other way, and it does stop. And meanwhile, he's trying to get the cuffs off, and he thinks, aha, I'll open the hood and get the fan and chisel it off that way. I've never heard of such a thing, but I guess you could do it. So anyway, it breaks the car eventually because you can't do that to a fan very long. But for a while, it still works. But he gets the cuffs off, and these people pull up, and she comes running back and says, he's trying to murder me. And he grabs her and throws her in the car. And then the lady in the other car, and they drive off, and the lady in the other car says, oh, they must be so much in love. It was so funny.
Yeah,
She
which
tells her
once
husband.
again, I think that's a Dorothy Parker line. Um,
Yeah.
you so Priscilla Lane is the main girl in it. Patricia. Which I'm
Uh-huh.
wondering if that was named after his daughter.
I don't know.
You know, but because this
Uh,
was original film, this was not this was not based on like a book or anything like that. But
uh-huh.
Priscilla Lane was in a few movies that I love. My favorite being was Arsenic and Old Lace. She
Oh,
played
yeah. She was the
Cary
niece in that.
Grant. She was Cary
Yeah.
Grant's girlfriend in that. And oh wait, was she the girlfriend or was she the yeah, she was the girlfriend. So
I did see it years ago, but I can't remember.
yeah, and then she was also in a little movie with Humphrey Bogart and James Cagney called The Roaring Twenties, which I have on 4K and from Criterion, and it is wonderful. By the way, if you I don't know if you've ever
Okay.
got a chance to see it, but it is
Which
fantastic.
one? Which one is
It's
that?
called The Roaring Twenties. It was a
No.
movie made in the 30s about the 20s and about the
Huh.
whole and it's got James
Uh-huh.
Cagney as a bootlegger back then, and he becomes sort of a gangster bootlegger guy, and Humphrey Bogart is one of the people kind of connected to him and stuff like that, kind of the heel in a way. Um, but it's a wonderful movie. It's great. Priscilla Lane does a fantastic job, just like she did in this movie, and in Arsenic Olay. So I would love to see some of the other films that she's been in that I never heard of. There's a bunch like Four Wives. That sounds interesting.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then what that was also done by Michael Curtiz, who I think did he do okay, well he did Casablanca, Michael
Oh.
Curtiz.
Uh-huh.
Um and then Million Dollar Baby. Not the
Oh,
Million Dollar
wow.
Baby that Clint Eastwood did, but the one that Ronald Reagan was in,
Uh-huh.
and a bunch of other movies that I have not seen that just sound fun. Sadly, she did not make another movie. She stopped acting in 1948 and she died in 1995 due to lung cancer, but at the age of 79. So it wasn't like she died early in her life, or anything.
It was
So,
79?
yeah, she was 79 years old and she died of lung cancer. So I guess she smoked up until the day she
Yeah,
died.
probably everybody did.
Yeah. She was a wonderful actress. She did such a great it said, "Oh wow!" After Betty Davis refused to the lead role in Four Daughters, Priscilla's sister Lola Lane suggested to Jack L. Warner that she and her three other sisters star in this tearjerker. Priscilla and Rosemary Lane were signed on, but the oldest sister, Leota Lane, who was flown in from New York to test for the part, was deemed unsuitable by the studio. Actress Gail Page replaced her. The movie was a hit, made a start out of John Garfield, and spawned two sequels, Four Wives and Four Mothers.
Oh,
So anyway,
well,
I
okay.
I now want to watch those. I want to watch those movies. You know.
Okay.
Um, but anyway, that was it. That's my little thing on Priscilla Lane and
Priscilla
whatnot.
Lane. Right.
Yes.
Very
Uh,
cool.
yeah. So now back to the story.
Well, the next thing that happened, they were out in the desert because the car quit on them,
Hmm.
and they're hoofing it. They're just on their 2 feet, 4 feet, and this circus caravan passes by. And so there was a little bit of a argument about it. She wants to inform on him. She keeps wanting to tell the cops. So she was going to run, and he grabs her. He says no. Puts his hand over his mouth. She bites him, and then he
Well,
just
even
keeps her.
before then, she puts her head on his like
Oh, because it was
shoulder.
cold. Yeah,
Well,
that's
she said
right.
because it was cold, but you could tell there was a little something more than that.
Yeah, but that's true. Controversial. She didn't know which way to go. She
Yeah, she was
still
kind of
thinks
she
he
was
might be. Oh, this is really good because I think I missed this. In my notes somewhere, she said, you look like a saboteur. In
yeah.
fact, you have the disposition of a saboteur. So,
She really
disregarding, what her uncle said, she just said, you look guilty. And
I think that was her trying to make up an excuse because I think even deep down she knew he wasn't one. There's little subtleties,
yeah,
little things there that they don't say out loud, but I think like you can tell from the way she acts
yeah,
that she sort of maybe she still didn't believe it, but she thought she didn't want to trust the fact that maybe he actually was one. So turning him into the police would be the easiest way to just, make sure that if he is,
yeah.
if he's found innocent, that's
She
that's up
wanted to
to him.
resolve it quickly. Yeah,
Yeah.
she was conflicted, but she thought, well, why did she even ask him? Why didn't you go to the police? And he says, yeah, by the time I'd be in jail for 2 weeks, and they wouldn't let me out, and I couldn't prove it. And this way, I can do it myself. And typical man. That's they want to do it their way. And
Well, no, no. I mean, but that he has an absolute truth about that because, say he's in jail for 2 weeks or whatever, they get over
oh,
because
I
it's
know,
going to take some time for the LA police to pick him up, and they pick him up, they
right?
take
I
him there.
don't know, I
He,
if I
how
would
is
have
he going
done
to
that or
prove?
not. I
How is he going to
would you
prove?
would
Would I have
if
done it?
you were him, what would you do?
Um,
Would
I
would
mean,
you have run? You got to think about that.
no, it's a good
Do you trust
question.
the authorities or not?
Um, and that is a running thing with Hitchcock. Hitchcock doesn't like,
Well,
we've
he
talked about
hates the
this
police.
story. Yeah, we've talked
Yeah,
about
we
this
know
story
why,
before.
right?
Yeah, he got
What his father did to
his
him when he was a
father,
young boy,
I think he was five
put
years
him in
old,
jail or for
put
the
him in jail.
weekend, and
Yep.
she's terrified of police.
And
It
so he
does
thinks
not
the
just
police
say
are the
he hates
enemy,
them, but
you know.
yeah. So yeah, that's true. So
And
anyway,
so,
they
yeah.
have this big thing, and then she he says, "Okay, I'm going to make a run for it. You want to come with me or not?" He says, "No, I don't want to be anywhere near you." And he says, "Okay, you stay out here with the snakes." And he talks about all the poisonous snakes. There's only like five poisonous ones, but there's a lot of different kinds of snakes out there, and they're all slimy and they're wiggly and and then he runs and catches the last caboose on the
Right.
wagon train or whatever it is, circus train, and she's like, "No, wait!" And she runs after him. And he says, "Oh, you prefer me to the snakes?"
Mm-hmm.
It was funny. There's so much humor in this, and so they get on
Absolutely.
there, and the door opens, and it comes out this bearded lady, this woman with a beard, comes out and says, "Can I help you?" And says, "Oh yeah, we need our car broke down, and we need, da da da." And so she says, "Well, come on in." And then they meet Bones, who's the head guy, and he's what the hell is he? He I didn't write it down, but so later on I caught it what he was. Oh, he's the human skeleton, and she is the bearded lady. And then they introduced the human mountain, which is actually a fat lady. They didn't say it in the movie. And then a midget. They did say the midget. You were allowed to say a
Right.
midget back then, not anymore. And Siamese
I think you
twins.
still can. I mean, I don't.
Well, I've been cautioned not to do that
Yeah, it's
several
probably a
times.
good idea not to,
They're
not
called little
to.
people. Well, I mean, same difference, but it's no harm, meant. It's just what you say. In French, it's Miget. Same
Right.
thing.
Yep.
So anyway, so then they take a vote. Should we turn them in or should we? Oh, it's up ahead. They stop, and then they notice the cops are searching the circus train, or not a train, it's a caravan. And they said, "Well, what do we do?" And the midget, naturally, he's a little punk. He's a
Mm-hmm.
malignant bastard, and
Mm-hmm.
he wants to pack a lies. Give him to the cops, feed him to the fish. Just get rid of him. So they had to muzzle him literally, and
Right.
put him away somewhere. And so when the cops come, they took a vote by one. They decided not to turn him in to protect him. So when the cops came to the door, they confront the police, kind of in an angry way, uh, especially the bearded lady. Ooh. And she was very sexual about stuff, about the love interest between the two of them. But with the police, she was like a tomcat. She was like the mother bear, and she told them to go mind their own business. Nobody was here. Oh, and the lady, they said, "Who's this pretty lady?" Oh, she's a snake charmer, and she's sitting on a box of snakes trying to keep them company because they're lonely. And then you could see that she starts to yawn, Pat, and then she's frozen in mid yawn, like. And when she said she's sitting on a box of snakes, and mid yawn, she freezes. That was so funny.
Like she
So
knows, now, my snake thing came true,
yeah, I
Like,
don't know if that was real or not, but it's whether or not she really sat on Snake. But and then they dressed her differently than she had, kind of fancy clothes. They put the other kind
well,
of clothes.
because they were saying like, because they were like, he's with a good-looking woman and stuff, and then they see her, and they're like, "Who's this lady?"
That's right. Yeah,
Who's this good-looking lady here? She can't be part
doesn't
of your
fit.
weird freak
All
show.
these freaks and this nice looking woman, and
Nope.
so Snake Charmer probably would work. So it's a good guess. And then he's Barry's up in the top bunk, covered up, and he's who he's bunking with is that little midget.
Yeah, who
And
did
the
not
midget
like him?
jumps down. He's really athletic. He jumps off the top rack and she runs out to try to tell the cops, and then they catch him and pull him back and muzzle him again. So anyway,
Hmm.
it was a good situation. Oh, and the next day they arrive at Soda City, and so um, they I don't know where my notes are right here, but they arrive at their destination, find it out it's a ghost town.
Hmm.
Soda City stopped being a city in 1923. There was a calendar on the wall, and it's 1942. So it's like for 20 years, it's been nothing. But they're using it. These saboteurs, they're bombing all the important things of the nation, and they use this as their headquarters. And the phone starts ringing in the other room while they're exploring, like Barry and Pat. They go, "Wait a minute, there's somebody using this place," and they find out the phone is just kind of like a field phone, and then suddenly, oh, they look at out the window of this telescope they find and see a dam. It must be Hoover Dam,
Hmm.
right? That they're going to blow up next. And so then two men come by. They put it away, but then two men come by, and she hides in the next room. and he confronts him, and he pretends to be the criminal everybody's looking for. He grabs a newspaper out of the guy's pocket. He says, you don't know who I am? He pretends to be like Fry. And so he convinces the boss, Mr. Freeman, to
Hmm.
take him to New York, to where the nest of the snakes are, the real big bosses in New York. Um, so um, let's see, he goes with him, and there's two guys in the front seat singing, and they stop at the Hoover Dam, and they go, "Isn't that amazing?" They admire the scenery before planning to destroy it. I thought that's typical
Mm.
sociopath, right? Admire something you're going to destroy. And then they talk about their kids. I thought this was interesting. About I have a son, but he plays with a toy for about 5 minutes and then destroys it. And then later on, he's almost sorry he did it.
Right.
That sounds like a sociopath too.
Yep.
But anyway, um, and they discuss abnormal traits in children, how sociopaths developed, but anyway, Barry endures the bad singing of two men in the front seat. They're
Hmm.
singing this really horrible song, and horribly, and then they get to New York City,
Well, we forgot to
and
mention something. Forgot to mention
oh,
something that's throughout the
okay,
whole movie.
okay,
Yeah. There are bulletin boards throughout the whole movie that are giving him hints of what's to come or something.
that's right.
And
Thank you for that.
that
Yeah,
is very Dorothy Parker. She did that.
very
I'm pretty
good,
sure.
very good.
But there'll be like stuff like, you will be murdered, and then it's like something like, by all these
Yeah.
slashed up prices or something like that. But there'll be like little
Yeah,
hints
I'm trying
as
to
to
find my note. I didn't type those up. I didn't see them till the last. I noticed them the second time I saw it, but it's very funny. Like one time they're going by, it says, "You can count on me." And I was like, "Yeah, right." And then another time it was like your extravagant funeral, or cheap funeral. And another one, there was like three or four of them, and they kind of had a sarcastic bite to it, because they're ironic in a way, and they're so funny. But I never wrote them down. But anyways, she was a billboard photo print model. I
Hmm.
used to be one, so I know. It was an international print model. So she was like known nationally for billboards, and so that's her main source of income actually. And so anyway, there are several references. If somebody sees this movie, look for those billboards because it's very funny how they did that. Okay, so they they get to New York. The phone was disconnected when they get there. Freeman's worried. He's like the boss that Barry meets in the desert. And then a rich woman by the name of Mrs. Sutton was angry at the hoodlums for bungling a job. And I guess they bungle a lot of jobs. And Pat is in a room with criminals because they caught her because she went to the sheriff and tried to
Well, okay,
report.
that scene was awful, by the way. That was the most annoying shot in the whole history of all of this. So we mentioned like he was with those two guys, Freeman and the other guy, and she was in the one room, right? So then they hear
Right,
the little something in the back room, so they go and check it out, and they don't see her, but I think they see like the doors open, so she escaped. It's like she got out and everything. Well, when he's like, "Oh, I don't know, what was it must have something must have got in, whatever," right? And then they cut right to her talking to the sheriff, but they don't tell you who that's the sheriff. Like you have no idea who that guy is,
right.
if you just watch it for the first time. You're like, I'm very confused as to who this person is and why, until but the cut is so weird
Hmm.
and so to
Yeah,
me,
he's right. It was an awkward
it was
scene.
it was an
Um,
awkward thing. By the way, I did get the billboards if you want to hear what they are. So
all right.
one
Okay.
is "She'll Never Let You Down."
It's Never Let You Down. That's a good one.
You're being followed by the
Should
cars that
follow
don't
you.
use common oil. Beautiful Funeral, 49.50.
Yeah.
And I think those are the big ones, right? I think the Beautiful Funeral one is the last one where he's driving in the car with the two guys and he
Yeah.
sees that
Right.
sign and he's like, oh crap. These are forewarning signs,
Right.
using literal signs. Okay, sorry. Continue with the
Well, that's all right. That was well done. Um, okay, so they're starting to talk about why she went to the sheriff and she was trying to report Barry, of course. But then, unbeknownst to her, the sheriff was on the take. He was a good
Mhm.
friend of Tobin's. And
Mhm.
so he went to Tobin and they turned her in. And so they caught her. So that was unfortunate. So she's back in New York before even Barry got there.
Mhm.
Okay, so Mrs. Sutton tells Pat was very indiscreet and told everything to the sheriff. Lucky is a corrupt friend of Freeman, so he turned him over to him. And Barry is in a difficult spot trying to explain why she was with him because he's pretending to be a criminal. So
Mhm.
then it's pretty obvious he's not. Tobin enters, dun, 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 sees Barry waving his thumb under a book titled Escape,
Escape.
trying
Once
to
again,
clue
another
his
sign.
girlfriend.
Another
And
sign.
then I love this part. Tobin goes over to another book called Death of a Nobody and puts his finger under that, meaning that he's a dead man.
Yep.
And oh God. So he's so smart, snarky, but
Well, I did look it up, and apparently, um, what is it, Priscilla, or not Priscilla, Dorothy Parker was only supposed to do like touch-ups, like
uh,
so it said that was it Universal did bring in Dorothy Parker to write a few scenes, mostly the patriotic speeches given by the hero. So, although Parker had been brought in to punch up the dialogue, Hitchcock also called in Peter Viertel to continue to work on the script. So apparently,
uh,
I guess, I mean, I don't know. A lot of it is probably Hitchcock too, like his sense of humor, his dark sense of humor, which we've seen a lot of that,
right.
right? So I don't
Yes,
know.
absolutely.
Anyway,
Uh,
continue.
okay.
So
So I'm almost out of juice with my phone, so I'm going to have to hurry. The blind man went to the police when the niece disappeared. They found that out. So somebody asked Tobin, "Is B all right? Barry all right?" Tobin said, "Oh yes, perfect. He's noble, fine, pure, misjudged by everyone, even police. He's not one of the nation's enemies, not part of our group. Can't turn him over to the police again. Made that mistake once. Can't abandon the plan to blow up the dam. We have to carry out our door orders. I'm going to Cuba. Had enough of this country." He's an obvious German sympathizer. And so then he blows his cover, right? So Barry's found out. So then they got, we're going to have to do something with this guy. So party guest comes for Mrs. Sutton, and immediately Barry and Pat leave with him. They make some excuse like, "Oh yeah,
mhm.
we got to hurry down." So they jump out the door, and everybody's going, "Oh shit!" Uh, and the front and back doors are blocked by the goons, however, so they can't get out. They just can't walk out. And they decide to trust the guests. Nobody believes Barry, of course.
They think he's
Uh,
either drunk or
he's either drunk or just, what's your gag, man?
yeah,
This
he's
one
just
guy's a
making
hep cat and he's using all this slang from the 40s. It's like, what's your deal, man? He thinks he's stoned or something. So they dance, they kiss. Pat says, "We're behaving badly, attracting attention." Barry says, "What's the difference? We weren't invited anyway."
right.
That was pretty funny. A dancer steals Pat away from Barry. She's taken to a back room, and Barry desperately starts to inform the crowd about the criminal enterprise. He stops as a goon points to a shooter on the balcony. Barry changes his tactics. He announces that Mrs. Sutton is auctioning one of her jewels. And the goon tells Barry that Pat wants to see you. So, and then Barry turns the thing over to an admiral.
Well,
You know
before
that.
then, he also points out that if he says anything before the Jules situation, if he actually tells them everything, look up there, and there's a
Yeah,
gun
I
pointed
said
at him.
that.
Oh, okay, I
Yeah,
didn't hear
he
that.
points to a shooter on the balcony that's pointed a gun at him, and so and it looks like he's ready to shoot anyway, but he doesn't. So he brings the admiral over to take over for him, and he has to go back. I don't know why he didn't know that Tobin wasn't waiting for him. I mean, by this time they've tricked him so many times. Pat wasn't waiting to see him, so Tobin's in the room. And Barry asked Tobin, "Why do you hate America so much? You've done well here." Tobin says, "You wouldn't understand. You're one of the moronic millions. You
Mhm.
live small, complacent lives. A few of us desire a more profitable type of government. The competence of totalitarian nations is much higher than ours. They get things done." And then Barry says, "Yeah, they bomb cities, sink ships, torture, murder, so your friends can eat off gold plates." And Tobin says, "I want power back by force. I'm tired. Time to sleep." And Tobin asked the butler, "Can you arrange for Barry to sleep somewhere?" The butler clubs Barry over the head twice. And then that was the end. Anything more you want to add to that?
So the whole, I guess the whole thing was he says, "You're one of the ardent believers, a good American. Oh, there are millions like you, people who play along without asking questions. I hate to use the word stupid, but it seems to be the only one that
Yeah,
applies. The great
right.
masses, the moron millions.
Yeah,
Well, there are a few of us unwilling to troop along, a few of us that are clever enough to see that there's so much more to be done than just live small, complacent lives. A few of us in America who desire a more profitable type of government. When you think about it, Mr. Kane, the competence of a totalitarian nations is much higher than ours. They get things done." Oh, God, man, that speech. Woo. I think that was what they were talking about with like the writing the speeches and stuff, and you know, and how
yeah.
he
I
basically he says all the or was it Barry says all the stuff he says to him.
right.
You know,
I really don't have time to get into that, but
yeah.
we could talk for an hour on that. And I think it's being done right now.
Mm.
I actually do, but I don't. I better not say too much.
Yeah, we better
Uh,
be quiet about this.
yeah, there's people listening out there.
Mm.
Um, so anyway, the next morning, Barry wakes up in the pantry, and somebody somewhere is saying, "Oh, he must be having breakfast by now." Well, he's eating a can of tuna or something, and with a lump on his head. And then he realizes he's smoking a cigarette, and he looks up, and there's a sprinkler over his head, for a fire. And so he deliberately sets off the fire alarm. And then everybody panics and runs out to the house. I guess they stayed the night. And so there's a big crowd in the street, and he makes his way to the other side of the street. So he's safe. He escapes. And the terrorists plan to bomb a new ship in Brooklyn Navy yards. He finds that out from a guy he's standing next to, and it's called USS Alaska. And Pat, and while he's doing that, he runs to he tries to get a cab to the Navy shipyard. But Pat is on a high-rise skyscraper in about 20th floor, and she's writing a help letter, like "Help, I'm being held," whatever. And then she throws it out the window, and it lands on an edge, on the ledge of another room down below, and the secretary reaches for it, and it falls on top of a car near chauffeurs on the street. Nobody notices until later. And then she said, "Look up," and my light is blinking. And so they do. And so I guess they eventually rescue her. And then Barry is escorted into a shipyard by police, and he sneaks past the MPs into the yard. He
Hmm.
sees Fry, who's ready to push the button to explode the dry dock that the ship is on. And so he attacks him. He starts strangling him, and prevents him from pushing the button until too late. And they fight a little bit, and the ship is off the dry dock. The ship is off the dry dock into the water by the time it explodes. And so it doesn't kill everybody. Fry pulls a gun on and Barry and takes him to the other goons, and then the cops arrive, and then Fry escapes. But as before that, they pass a ship. It's on the side. Do you remember seeing that? And I'm wondering if that was the USS Alaska. There was a ship on its side in the water. I was like, so maybe it did do something to kind of half sink it. But when it came off the dry docks, it sure didn't look like it was affected. But maybe it was. I don't know. So anyway, the cops arrive. Fry escapes, goes into a theater. The guns on the film match the guns in the theater.
That was pretty cool.
Firing. And then one guy pretends to be dead, and then the second time he's shot and is dead. So his wife screams, and that's some more dark humor.
And then they start running out. It kind of reminded me, you ever seen the movie The Blob?
Yeah.
And everybody's running out of the theater screaming, it kind of reminded me of that. I don't know.
I do remember that.
If one or the other, which I think The Blob was made after this. Yeah. The Blob was 1958. 50s. Yeah.
Yeah,
so maybe
I
they
saw
got
that
scene. Maybe they got that scene from that. I don't know.
I saw that in a theater at the age of about 8.
You guys didn't all run out of the theater screaming?
I didn't. I hid under the seat.
Did you know one of my
scariest movies.
Do you know they do that in Phoenixville or something? I think that's what it's called.
Well, Mr. Lobo's responsible for restaging all this stuff.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah, he's really good at that kind of stuff.
I love Mr. Lobo.
Yeah, I do too. I'm trying to get him involved in the remake of Pan Man, so I'll get you in it too. Sure. We're going to get all the people I know on the East Coast. The guy down the vampire. What's his name? Gordeval.
Gordeval, yeah, nice. Yeah, I love Gordeval.
So his name is Richard Dick Deisel. So anyway, the cops take Barry and Pat. The cops take Barry with them for some reason, the FBI, and then Pat trails Fry in a cab. Then they travel on a ferry together, watching each other. And he's obviously interested. She's trying to lure him because the FBI they tell her to try to keep him. So that they pass a ship on the side in the dock. Oh, that's the one. USS Alaska. I question mark. I'm not sure. Both exit the ferry to the Statue of Liberty. Now, I've been up on the crown of that. They don't let people up there anymore for obvious reasons. But back then, I guess they did. Pat calls the FBI. They have Barry. Pat finds Fry on the top of the Statue of Liberty in the crown and tries to delay his departure. So nothing works. He tries to seduce him. He won't go for it. And so she calls him by name. 15 minutes won't make much difference, Mr. Fry. And he goes, what? He turns around as he's going down the stairs because he has to catch that boat to get back over before the cops arrive on the next one. And Fry says, who are you? How do you know my name? Why are you following me? And Pat says, figure it out for yourself. They're coming for you. Fry sees the cops down below. He looks out the window. He runs downstairs to the outside, and then he climbs a ladder to get up to the top of the roof. And then so Barry climbs the ladder too. He holds a gun on Fry, who backs away and falls over the railing. Dangles from the statue hand, and that's like reminds me of what is it, North by Northwest?
But this is like that scene right in behind me, and behind me is the shot of the the Statue of Liberty holding Fry, and stuff. But he's gripping him by his he ends up grabbing his sleeve, which I think was silly. Why, if he could have grabbed his arm, why not grab his arm?
Well, then you wouldn't have a movie. Well, anyway,
then he would have been
he grabs his sleeve. But I don't know why he did either, but he just did.
He
Maybe he
did it
couldn't
so it
reach
could
his
rip.
hand.
Yeah.
His hands were sweaty. So he grabs his sleeve, and the sleeve rips off. And so Fry, uh, oh no,
Falls.
Fry clutches Barry's sleeve. It's not the other way around.
No.
Uh, and then Barry's sleeve rips off. And Barry goes down and reaches out, and Fry clutches Barry's sleeve, and it gives way, and he falls to his disgusting death. And it's too late for the rope that the cops were sent for, of course, and they
Hmm.
never arrived. But anyway, why even save this guy? He's blown up and killed a lot of people already. But anyway, it's a moralistic movie, so the good guys are always nice to the bad guys,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So, but anyway, what else would you like to add to?
Well, I mean, I just thought that was a great scene. That was probably one of my favorite like things. But it was like the Mount Rushmore, and I
Yeah,
think 39
right.
Steps had a scene like this, and I mean, it's a
Yeah, it's true.
monument, you know. It's really cool.
They were
So,
hanging off Abraham Lincoln's nose.
yeah,
They almost named the movie that, "The Man Who Hung from Linton's Nose,"
yeah.
or something like that. That
Well,
would
then
have been pretty stuff.
that would have gave things away. Put a
Yeah,
spoiler thing.
we don't want that. Plus, it sounds silly,
North
so
by
they want to be.
Northwest was a great title. Um,
Yeah,
and this Saboteur worked really well. I really liked it. So
yeah.
I get this is one of my favorites that we've done in a
I
while. So
what? How many stars do you give it?
I'd probably give it 4.5 out of 5.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right. I was gonna do like 8 or 9 out of 10, but
Eight
same
or
thing.
nine. I would have probably
Yeah,
gave
well,
it
probably yeah,
9 out of 10.
more of a nine. And
Yeah.
but I don't think there's a perfect movie, but maybe you know.
I do. I have a perfect so
Do
far. A
you?
perfect Hitchcock movie is Psycho so far. That's my favorite.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I fucking love that movie.
Which one is it?
Psycho.
Oh, Psycho. Okay,
Yeah, that's my favorite. All right.
that's very
So,
psychotic of you.
well, that's a sociopath of me. All
Yeah,
right. All right. Well, we'll be back
there
in
you have it.
whoa, why does that say May? Okay, no, okay, so May. So in June we'll be back with another movie, and we're gonna be doing the remake of The Man Who Knew Too Much. So we already
Oh,
did the old
wow.
one, but we're gonna do the
Yeah.
remake now.
Okay,
Uh,
what year was this made?
1950 something, 56, I want to say.
56.
Ah, I knew.
Yeah, we did the one from earlier, right?
Yep,
Uh,
that's that.
Trying to look, see where it was. Um, I don't see it, but
Yeah. Well, we did the earlier one before. We did the man who knew too much.
yeah, I don't see it here.
1930, 34 one.
Oh, we
Uh,
did the one. Yeah, what was that in the 50s or
yeah,
40s,
the 30s actually.
30s,
Original one was 1934, and this one was
34?
1956.
Okay, great. So
So,
22 years later.
yep, 22
Okay,
years
we'll
later, he
see what
remade his movie.
they probably colorized it, right?
They colorized it, and yeah, it's not it's Jimmy Stewart this time and Doris Day, and the villain is a different villain. So I'm really excited to
Yeah. Okay.
I'm excited
So
to do this. So this will be
can't
fun.
wait for that one in
Yep,
June. Okay,
yep.
great.
But
All
aside from
right.
that, what did you think? Did you enjoy this one a lot? Like the
Oh,
movie?
very, very much. No, I told my wife I really, really like this movie.
So
So probably
hopefully,
one of the better ones we've seen.
yeah.
I
Well, it
mean, not
reminded me a lot
probably,
of
it
yeah, it
is.
reminded us a lot of 39 Steps, and I think the 39 Steps really was like the first real big wrong man Hitchcock movie that kind of started it all, you know. I would love for
Yeah.
them to do a movie like this now, if they could. I don't know what it would be about. They can't really get very political because, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
it would
Right.
come off bad if they did. So, they would. I don't know. You'd have to figure it out. But I would love a wrong man, spy movie again. You know.
Right, right.
Um, but
Yeah,
thank
this
you.
one did. A lot of
Oh,
people will sense that when they see the movie. Oh yes, I see the parallels here.
well, yeah. I mean, the scene where he goes to the old man, the blind man, is the scene where he in 39 Steps where he went into the house of the man and his wife, and the wife was helping, you know, him out. It was a little bit different, but it was similar in the story. So I like it. This could
Yeah,
be a.
yeah.
I think these two and North by Northwest would be a great triple feature. If you watch all three of them back to back, that would be fun. Yeah.
Oh, there was a great line from when Patricia first comes to her uncle's house in the woods,
Mm-hmm.
and the I think she says, "Oh, I was stopped by police, and they said that there was a man escaped, and they said the man was dangerous." And then the uncle says, "Sure they did. How can they be heroes if he was harmless?" And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, "Oh my God, that was so great. It's just struck so much."
That's such a Hitchcock kind of
Yeah,
line because we know he does not like the law.
right.
He kind of views the law as they are not good people. Because it's the truth. Like you're arrested before you're presumed, you're what's that line? You're guilty before you're presumed innocent,
Yeah.
and you have to prove yourself innocent.
It,
Instead, it should be you're innocent until proven guilty, you know.
yeah, but not so, right?
Yeah.
Especially in the press, right?
Oh,
They always
absolutely.
word it so that oh yeah, you got to be guilty.
Yep,
Um,
yep. Whether whatever side you're on anything, one person's gonna say this, another person's gonna say this about you. And that
right,
is the problem with like the media. The media can say whatever they want, you know. But nowadays,
right.
back then and back in this time, they only had the reporters. We forgot to mention one thing, and that'll be the last thing I'll mention, is the scene where the motorcycle cop had come and stopped the person about the tail light, and then he gets in there and he said, he's listening to the radio, and the radio says, "Be on the lookout for Barry Kane, a man in his, blah blah."
Right.
Describes Barry.
I mentioned that
I
earlier
don't
on.
I don't remember that.
You
Um,
know, well, you were obviously distracted,
Maybe.
but yeah, I did say that. And he looked down, and then he looked towards where they left. They'd already pulled away, and then he decided to just go the other way.
There
And I
you
thought
go.
that's kind of strange, but and they told us the highway they were on, the description of Barry, everything.
Yep, and he
And it's
didn't
like
even do anything.
I maybe he didn't notice Barry on the other side. Is well, he had to, but
No, he noticed
that
him.
wasn't very observant.
Yep.
So yeah, that was a biggie.
Yep.
So
All
anyway,
right.
well,
Well, that's it. Then we've
that's it,
discussed the
folks.
film. Hope you
That,
guys enjoyed this. We'll be back next month with a brand new episode where we'll be talking about the man who knew too much. We'll know
yeah,
more about the man who knew too much. You know.
yeah. You can't know too much or you disappear.
Exactly.
So
So thank
yeah,
you guys for checking this out and hope you have a good one. Bye, G. Larry
okay.
Butler. Let's all have
See
a
ya.
great day. Bye.
Hey, Jonathan. Ta ta.